Good afternoon, David, and how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, I'm really happy today to have as our guest Mr. Copeland, Professor Emeritus Copeland, Brian Copeland. And the first thing I want to ask you, Brian, is what can I call you?
Call me anything. Brian is fine. Professor University give me, they could take it back. So, so Brian is fine. It's
Brian
all
is
good.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much because today we just plan to have a conversation.
Yes.
And I found it so amazing that you have such a range of areas in which you are competent and a professional and you can provide advice and you can discuss. It's so, so wonderful. And one of the first things that came to my mind was to ask you, how did you get there? Tell us, how did you get there?
Okay. Well, Denise, well, thank you for having me, first of all, and good afternoon. Um, uh, that's a deep searching question, and I've spent some time thinking about it. It's a journey that started, I believe, when I began at UE. Um, I had just come back from doing my master's actually in an area called control systems, which is actually very, very broad. It's not just applicable to engineering. I tell people control engineering is life, really. Um, and one of my mentors, Professor Sinclair King, always used to say, never forget it's about people. And we actually worked on some projects together. We were both interested in seeing how well the Faculty of Engineering and the university in general could help support the growth of the nation. We've been training students, they've been going out, getting the jobs and all that, that's fine. But to get that push forward, we knew there was more to be done. And in all the discussions, we finally ended up moving, well, from engineering and embracing things like economics and social systems and whatnot, because it's all about people. All the things we do is really for the well-being of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean. So I ended up dabbling, sometimes upsetting my my colleagues at UE, because my emphasis was really more on that than on hunting down the research, the publish or perish sort of paradigm. I wasn't too much into that, right? But getting a mechanism through which we can really help our people grow and develop. So, not sure that is more or less how I got into it. And just one more thing, I still see we in this country like to put up hard divisions between disciplines. So, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, there's divisions between them, my space. Then you get into the social sciences, you get into the medicals and so on, my space. And really and truly, I don't see any division at all. It's like a spectrum. It's like a spectrum. And you'd be surprised how cheap Mother Nature is, right? Because a lot of the systems she put in place in one field, you can easily map it, well, fairly easily, map it across the next association, we tend to call it. So I've never seen those divisions as hard divisions, much to the chagrin of a lot of my colleagues. And that actually helped me as well to progress in the way that I have.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just your colleagues. I think that our society is
Yeah.
very, silo oriented. So
Yeah.
we see, the engineers as engineers, and we see the medical practitioners as medical practitioners. We
Yeah.
often don't even see those persons who do social sciences as people
Mhm.
who are important at all. We can say,
Yeah.
so what was the degree you did? If you say something like, I did social justice, they look at you and say, because it's not one
Yeah.
of the traditional approaches that we have. But
Yeah.
Brian, I want you to go back just a little further back, and you went to Presentation College,
Yeah.
San Fernando.
Yes, I did.
How do you think that impacted where you are today, or did it?
Uh, it did to a certain extent, not an awful lot. I learned a little bit about life there. When I went to apprenticeship first, it's the first time like, oh wow, there's a world outside my home in Coquet. And And I met people from different backgrounds, and there were some very interesting teachers there. Very, very, very interesting. Would you believe I love Latin? I loved art. I did Latin all the way to O levels. All right. My father was a math man, so I was very, very interested in history and all of that. So I dabbled in many different things. And my colleagues were pretty much the same. We were just dabbling and fooling around with different areas. The one disappointment I had wasn't presentation itself, but the school system. Um, I think I got away. But after me, students had to choose: are you doing modern studies? Are you doing sciences and so on? And I've always find that to be a colossal sin. You know, here I am. I don't know what I want to be, and at age 14, you're asking me to choose a path. That's madness. You know, and it still exists today. I think you should expose children to as much as possible, as early as possible. Let them on their own start going in different directions, and at the same time, they could do that, and doesn't mean the end. You have to have a brain, you have gray matter between your ears. You can always revert and learn something in a particular direction, and then go to the next one. What do you get in the end? Is a much better developed citizen.
Yeah.
In the end. Yeah.
But I'm afraid that still is not, that still is the way we operate.
Yeah.
And I think our children are not exposed enough to varieties of things for them to focus on their lives in a different way.
Yeah,
You
we
said
take that away.
you said you grew up in Coquet.
Yes, Coquet Village, San Fernando. Still here. It's right outside.
Okay, what do you remember about growing up in Coquet Village? How was that?
uh, Pitch on the road. My father, I kind of lucky. My father was a fireman, my mother a nurse. So I actually was born on St. Vincent Street in San Fernando. Um, and then we moved, spent a long time on Drayton Street, which is bottom on Rushford Street. Are you from San Fernando by any chance?
No, but I spent 10 years of my life working at Point Pier.
Okay.
So I had to learn San Fernando. And if I
Okay.
can just share a little story.
Yeah.
When I went to the job interview in 1979
Mm.
at Texaco, I turned right and ended up in San Fernando when I should have been coming home.
Yeah.
Ended up in Monrepo, actually, the Monrepo
Right.
police station. So I went to the police station and I asked the policeman, how do I get back to Port Spain? So
Yeah.
he explained to me what to do and so on. So I did it. I ended back up in the police station. So he said to me, he says, just now, I'm going to finish work in about half an hour. You just sit there and I will show you how to get back normal. So I spent 10 years of my life learning San Fernando, and it was an absolutely wonderful experience. So continue.
That's okay. I get lost in San Fernando sometimes. All right. It's not grids. It's around the hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. We lost track. I got
We
lost.
lost track. I was asking you about Coquet, where you grew
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh yeah. That was a good experience. My mother, by the way, was Bajan. My grandmother, in particular. So I grew up in a Bajan speaking house. Right. Father did his mass in the house. So that experience was something else. And I actually started electronics there. My neighbors were into those correspondence courses, and I would sit and go through things with them. And actually, it was a stream of neighbors that came that either were in DJing, which I tried, and in electronics as well, building amplifiers and so on. And then some really boys around, so playing football and cricket and cricket in the road. Go-karting, my father made one, right? So we were between two hills, dangerous stuff. Table tennis, it shaped me, but the mass in particular, it shaped me, because my father was always lost in the clouds thinking of the next presentation, and I saw many costumes came to life. His books were there, some interesting stories with those books, but that's where he got his ideas as well. And I used to read them, so I got into a little bit of North American, Indian history, but I was particularly interested in the Aztec and Mayan aspect part of it. I read that book twice, actually. I was a young boy still in school. Read that book, really impressed with that culture. I mean, despite the things they say they did. And that to me was one of the best bands he ever portrayed. Right? You looked at South America and there was the Mayans and Aztecs coming down the road and whatnot and so on. All right.
Mm.
So um, it impressed me quite a lot. And him being a fireman, my mother being a nurse, I got exposed to science as well in the field. So I grew up on Ward 8 in San Fernando General. It's just eyes, ear, nose, and throat. We had a waiter now where she cleaned all utensils and so on. My father would go and I'd watch all of the equipment that they had. Then he didn't fully explain what they were about, but I got into reading about it and so on. So I think being there, being in that environment, it influenced me quite a lot, um, and and helped me to go on the path that I've set on. I actually wanted to be a doctor, but then I realized I didn't like the sight of blood, so I changed very quickly. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a little bit about your
Yeah.
history, where you came from. There's just one other question that I just wanted to ask you about your history and where you came from. Were there any influencers in your community that you looked up to when you were a young boy?
I think my father would have to be the major one, by far. Um, Can't think about anything he ever beat me, My mother gave
Okay.
all the licks, but he would try to give advice. He worked hard, so not just at the mass, right? So he was a joiner. So again, tools and all that stuff around there, and then he got into the firefighting, discipline, and he wasn't too bad at maths. So he used to help me in the early days, with the math. And then, well, I just ran past him after that. He did not go to high school like most people in that time, but actually ended up entering the fire service and completing his career as chief fire officer. I think he was the first person they sent on scholarship for training. So all that impressed us. And well, of course, the masters as well. Um, my mother was the one who was behind him, plotting and organizing and all that sort of stuff. He spent many a carnival penniless, the months after carnival. So, so Beijing as she was, she would help to put things in order. So, I think the two of them. There are others. Grandmother lived with us. She wasn't easy at all. So you ever get plan asked with a bread knife? That was me.
I never got it, but I gave it.
So, yeah, but their story of coming across from Barbados, which I learned only later on in life, I was quite impressed with that. They came to World War II
Yeah.
and all of that, and domestic violence is what ran them. So I would think for the main part, though, if I put a list one person, be my father.
Yeah, and that's so great.
Yeah,
And that is really good if you can list your father as
yeah,
that influencer in your life.
yeah.
So today we are having a conversation with Professor Emeritus Brian Copeland, and his CV shows a variety of things: electrical engineering, a lot of academics, a lot of academia, social justice, all kinds of things. But Professor, and I'll stop calling you Professor, but Brian, I look at the image and there's an instrument behind you.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was
Explain,
not on purpose.
explain.
This is my workroom. So
Yeah, 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 and that's fine. But explain that pan instrument behind you.
okay, that
Yes.
is the Phi, percussive harmonic instrument. It's all synthetic, so what you see there is plastic, for the most part. Um, we typically use a white on black, so the notes are white, the outside is black. That's just to for all different reasons. That we were helped with by someone who was very familiar with ergonomics and designing it, the structure of it, a furniture designer. But it is patterned after the tenor steel pan in terms of the note layout and all that. So any panist could in fact play this. The difference is that that is essentially a synthesizer in pan form. So I can play pan any range. I can go down to bass. I can go up to highs. I can play drums. I can play trumpets. I can play saxophones, pianos, Right now, this one is programmed to play sitar, piano, marimbas, and three main ranges of pan, which is the tenor, the mid range, and the bass. Right, and you can barely see the buttons on there. There are buttons on top. You just press them, and you can switch to those, and it works through a screen, which I don't have here. We program on the screen now, and that screen gives you access to 128 different instruments that you could select. So, which is pretty much what is available on a pretty good enough keyboard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's designed for the panist. All about people, right? It's designed it's designed for the panist, so they can, as one panist told me, it's like giving him a bigger canvas and a whole range of brushes and paints. So now he can paint different colors to generate his music. That was Darren Shepherd that used that sort of analogy.
Mm-hmm.
That always stuck with me. Yeah.
But I have heard a lot of people say that is really against the pan, because it tell me the thinking behind them saying that it's against the pan.
Well, kind of expected that when we were designing it. And by the way, this is a long journey. It's very, very long. And this journey started in about 85.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, long journey. It tells you where we are as a country. But I expected it. But I don't think that the thinking is along that line now. I think we've seen enough. There are competitors outside there. They've seen them as well. They've seen the recordings. We've done 2 recordings, one with Bugsy Sharp. Bugsy Sharp has an album that features only this, and a tribute to Sparrow. And Darren Shepherd has probably the best Christmas album out, right? Where he blends his pan and sam, small band, with the five. So you hear it playing and chiming in every now and again. So my response to them is that no, it's not a pan. That's why we call it five. It's not an X pan or a Y pan or whatever, right? It is a fi, a percussive harmonic instrument that it has the look of the pan, yes, and that's it. After that, it's whatever you want it to be. If you don't like the tones of pan on it, like the people have they favor some tones, guess what? We could change it. You want your voice on it? I could put your voice on it, right? It's a synthesizer, and now you can do a lot more than you could with your normal pan. You don't throw away your pan because there's a certain sacrilege with doing that, I guess. But some people actually tell you that these electronic instruments, they can't touch the real sound, and I would agree with them. I do dabble a lot in sound system installation, and I always prefer the natural human voice over something coming over a microphone. But be that as it may, that's how people make their income. And the intent was just that. Can I help the panelists to improve their craft and open up possibilities in terms of their income earning? We have panelists who have traveled over the world with this particular one. This has seen more places than I have. China, right, Seattle, most of the states and so on, South Africa, through the Caribbean and whatnot. This particular model has been through it all, through snow and everything else that you could throw at it. It's been there. It still keeps on ticking. Yeah. So they have been able to establish themselves right now. Yeah.
Okay. So it means you have some interest in the Steelpan ecosystem.
Well, that's the way to put it, because it's part of the ecosystem. It's not pan, but anybody who can play that tenor pan can play this in 2 seconds.
Mm.
Yeah. So there I am. I'm giving you more power, right? More power, more ability. You can turn your volume down, turn it up. You can go down low. You can go up high. You can do some strange tones. You can create your own, right? And put it out there. And now you're just fully exploring your capability as a musician with it. It's just another tool in your arsenal. Yeah.
So what is your view of the state of our Steelpan ecosystem at the moment?
Take a sip of coffee for that one, but I think it's improving. I think when you look at the panists, they have done pretty well, with or without five. They have done pretty well, although I'll note that some of the foreign ones have done better than the local ones, right? Robbie Greenwich done well, so has Ray and all these guys. Bugsy, well known. I mean, Japanese flock here every carnival just to see him and worship at his temple, you know. I'm not so sure he make any money to suit. You see it? Um, but be that as it may, I do think that all that's needed on the performance front is for there to be tighter organization, and a sense of this is my business, so I am developing my business. So that whole business mindset that many have spoken about, they do need to get more into that, just to ensure that they can well get the best buck possible. They've done very well, as I said. You look at, I mean, I learned that a long time ago. You look at any movie has a set up panels, people play around the pool, the normal thing, right? The template that they use, the foreigners use, playing yellow bird and all kind of stuff like that. No problem, pay a little bit of payment, right? But there is I found out that in fact there is at least there was, it doesn't exist anymore. There's one guy in Los Angeles who would organize panels around him, and he had the key to the music union there. You cannot play in a band or take part in any performance without going through the music union. They'll come through him and put the panels there. Robbie Greenwich was part of it. That's the kind of organization we need. Right now, it's people playing their own games and taking advantage of the opportunities and so on. So I still think, as far as performance goes, we up there. This is still the Mecca, and we have to work to keep it like that, right? In whatever way we could, but the real challenge we have is in Steelpan technology. And I'm talking here about the whole business of manufacturing and sale of pans. Now, I'm happy to see Mitco come up. They're doing what we had planned to do with the G-Pan project. That was the aim of it, to strengthen and develop the steel pan industry. This is the manufacturing aspect of it. How do you work with tuners? That's something I haven't solved because they're artisans. It's still an artisan-based industry. If you ask me how to make a pan, I cannot tell you. I can't. And I don't care what any scientist says, they don't have the whole formula. It still is touch and feel and listen and adjust as they do it. But getting closer and closer and closer, all right, to understanding it fully. We have to be there first. We have to be the ones to tell you this is what steel pan is, and this is how it should sound, and so on. So Tuners Guild, there's something that was formed, not very active. We only just started to form steel pan manufacturers organization, and we were challenged to do so because the government actually took the lead in trying to do what I call a record action in securing the intellectual property for pan. By looking at geographic indicators, like made in Trinidad and Tobago, that kind of sign goes on it, and it's a seal that's approved by international bodies, and that will give our local manufacturers a little bit of an edge in doing it. I'm afraid we were a bit immature, naive, when we first conceived the instrument. This is as a country. We still argue about who really did it. I really don't care. It came to us. Right? It came to us, and it's a gift, and that gift has to be maximized. We have to maximize the benefit of that gift for, again, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, the first beneficiaries will be those in the steel pan industry, but we haven't really and truly got to that point. We have the G-pans were patented, and nothing has come of them.
But there's a view that we have lost the ownership of the steel band, of pans.
Yes and no. But ownership is really in the marketplace. You could pretend till the cows come home. If somebody really wants to come at you, they will come at you, regardless. The patent just a little bit of the defense, right? But it would have been great to have it in your hand. But the patent's only good for a certain time, 30 years maybe. 30 years go on long time if you had patented it then. You have to make up your mind that I'm going into the marketplace, I'm going to sell like crazy. That is where you show ownership. That is where you own it. Right now, if you talk to some of the better tuners in the world, not going no names, luckily a couple of them, right? So they can't, nobody could carry on with them. They tell you, a couple of the real good tuners out there, and outside, not Trinidadians, right? Eddie Manette, I call his name, right? Eddie Manette told me there was a young lady who tuned with him, learned under him. big story about how we got into that scenario where somebody's learning to tune on them in the University of West Virginia. Right? They went after him. They said, you have to bring this thing here when we had nothing going on at UP, right? And there's this girl, she comes out to Carnival every year. Forgot her name. And he told me, Brian, I swear, that's the best tune I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So we smug and comfortable thinking we have it, yet look at the age of the tuners we have. Butch Kelman and the like. Right? Look at the age, right?
Yeah.
And they're tired. They're tired. It's not an easy area.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not an easy area. Young guys coming up, MIC, lovely program to start it, but I still don't think we have a handle on the business. There's some entities doing good business outside. It's good, keeping their families alive and so on. I can't say we really dominate the space.
Yeah.
Steelpan is not on the music trade list. There's a publisher coming out every month, list musical instruments all over the world. It's not appearing on the list. Volume is low.
Tell me something. Can I interject here a little bit?
Of course you can. Of course you can, David.
Spoke of the Phi synthesizer. How available is it in case just in case, like, there are lots of pianists, tenor players to be exact, who are very versatile.
Yeah.
How can they get their hands on this? Is it that available or
no? I will not speak of my competitors, right? But we went through real pain in bringing this forward. I did say that. Well, let me ask you a question first. The answer is no, but we get in there. All right. And I will not put a date right now because every time I put it, it eludes me. So I'm not there right now, but we're real close. I think we just crossed a very big hurdle in bringing it forward. And the plan is to launch with a limited set, test the market, and then go beyond that. That's the intention. So right now, what we do is make it available. The one or two that we have, only 2 prototypes we have. One we keep in the lab because we're still doing some tweaking and development. I should say, Dennise and David, this was designed here and was built here. All the electronics, very sophisticated. This is not a PC you buy off Amazon and put together in your house. This is a serious piece of equipment that we've put together, and it was done right here with our students, our graduates, right? Ourselves involved in that whole process, right? I had 17 people on the team putting this together. So understand, to me, this is significant and shows your real potential at Trinidad and Tobago. So in any case, what I'm saying is that it's gone through some pain. You will remember that there was this case of Attorney General versus Brian Copeland and 3 other people. Well, okay, so one died and the other one, is not seeing too well, and so on. And there's just 2 of us remaining that are active on the project. What that did was it hit us with a slam dunk. The whole issue of ownership came up. And, I just leave it to you to read the documents about what was happening when government last year, for example, the instructing attorney actually turned state witness and all that. So we go read up about it. I don't want to mention that here. We knew that was going on even then. But the consequence of it is that all of the investment that we lined up was lost. No investor will come with you if there's a government questioning you. Something that could be as simple as Copeland, what the hell are you doing? Right? Come on, this is whatever. Let's have a discussion. No, out open everything, that messed up everything. And just to show you, at the time when that happened, Nicki Minaj had visited Trinidad and Tobago. So it's how long ago this was. She had this Pound the Alarm video. That video starts off with the Phi. We didn't ask for it. We didn't pay for it. They just saw it. Luckily, 2 of my engineers were, we had one performer, one engineer in the Savannah, but everybody else was looking to get a little place in there. But I learned the song, they were playing it, and the guys just took a video and said, thank you very much. And next thing we knew, it made the cut. Slept overnight in the Savannah. 289 million views to date. 289 million views. All that lost. all that was lost, right? Because of that, I call it silly action. And well, my step family and all that kind of stuff, mother died in the middle of it. So sorry to complain, but that part I haven't forgotten. But it really took the wind out of us. We were ready at that point. Now, since then, in the hiatus, technology changed. We had to upgrade the technology. We turned around. Wasn't getting much support from them, but they turned around. But they had a certain principle and put some investment in it, and that's what we're using now to move it to production. Yeah. So sorry to give you the long-winded story, but it ties into the whole discussion.
Yes.
That has to do with this country and how well it performs when it comes to bringing new products to market and its competitiveness and the whole thing of diversification, which is what this was. This was an attempt to diversify. Yeah.
Where is Pan Trinbago on all of this?
Pan Trinbago never touched this. We'd asked, and I was waved away. This is a long time ago, not the current president. I think it was 2 presidents removed. And we said, okay, look, we didn't want to get inside there, but we did collaborate with Pan Trinbago on the GPAN and on Steelpan manufacturing. So there's a factory out at Trin City. It's right opposite MIC. And MIC has helped us along. Clement Bear, who's there and also at UTT, has helped us, was part of the project. So I remember it would have been 2014 or so. I got a call from KTR's, and he was looking for a place to put some equipment that he was gifted with. And he had given them a whole set of drum making equipment. It was old equipment, like 30 years old, but it could still be made to function. Well, we were reeling from the effect of the case and kind of almost shut down the project, but would doggedly keeping the facility open. Actually on a factory site. And there was space. I said, come here. And he came, we set it up for him. We got technicians to set it up, run it, bring it right back to original mint condition, and was spinning out drums, right? So we work with Pan Trinbago on that. They had a company that, well, I didn't spend too much time with the company, but we helped them in terms of the production. We actually blended some GPAN technology into some of the drums they were making. So out of that, with the activity, we actually made a reduced side GPAN that all the tuners loved. It was holding the tuning of the instrument very well. From the feedback we got is that it was actually well loved. I could recognize them a mile away. So when I smile every time I watch Panorama on stage and I watch all those drums, right, whether they're big or they're small, I know when they're GPANs, right? So something happened there, but it wasn't pulled together as nicely as it should. And we did collaborate with Pan Trinbago on that front.
Now, outside of Panorama, are you seeing it defy it as being inclusive in the stage side steel bands?
Not yet. Not enough of them for that. As I said, there are only 2. We did along the way while we were making prototypes. Like, oh Lord, I could tell you how not to do this project, right? But a lot of prototypes. We got as far as an ensemble out in Arima, Joseph family, the family band.
Yeah.
They were actually looking for another technology. I had done amplified pan years ago. So you put sensors on it and you, normal pan, just put the sensor on, connect it to an amp and you could blow away the place. All right. And they wanted that. And when they came and they saw the 5, that was it for them. They didn't turn back. So they had 5 fives, but not the current one. This is what we call version 1. Yeah. We were still working on the technology. And that's the biggest sort of group that we had, using the 5. They did mostly carnival performances, big events during the middle of the year, and that sort of stuff. They were experimenting as well, so they brought in singers and whatnot and so on, and managed to get them into UE FET and Central Bank FET. Everybody thought it was a pan until they started to play. It was a band, a full-fledged brass band or something like that. So they were experimenting, with it loud. I mean, if you want to hear loud pan, you should hear them. Seriously. Drawing bass, Chinese like hard pong. Well, yes. I'm a old DJ, so I love hard pong, right? You get to know all that, right? All the way to the top end and everything, full range. And then they integrated everything with other musicians and all that. So Olatunji sang with them 1 year. Yes. Yeah, he was the lead singer 1 year. I know Patrice had tried something, and so did Denise Belfort. Those were, dubbing things, but Olotunji was the big one. They were really happy that year when he sang with them.
Speaking of amplifying pans,
Yeah.
you see in the future, when there's Panorama,
Mm-hmm.
you have a team that wears UTT jerseys, but the team I'm talking about.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
guys, they amplify or they mic the bands.
Like it and record.
Would we get to a place where each pan is individually amplified so that like the keyboard specialist or the keyboard engineer can bring a total sound that is well accepted as a steel band sound, like especially for Panorama?
It's tough. As I said, I do some sound installation, so I dabble a lot with people who, I'm a wannabe roadie, right? So who play around with these things, and I could tell you, the reason why Rhapsody went for the Fi is because they had real serious difficulty in restricting the sound coming out from the instrument, especially if it's coming from a microphone.
Mm-hmm.
It will always pick up not just the pan in front of it, but the others as well. So you can't really differentiate between them, and you can't. And feedback, even when you put sensors on the pan. So we dabble with two types of sensors, which is not a microphone. So we did not have microphones. We would actually make some of ours, or use industrial grade sensors. There are sensors that detect vibration. So we use those. It's now commonplace actually. You could go in the store and buy them. People use them on the guitars.
Mm-hmm.
But even with those, because the pan has a large surface area, it comes like a giant microphone.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get feedback and you can get what we call bleed going from one to the other. But it's much better than if you use microphones. Much, much better. Right? I've looked at what are the best microphones to use, but I've never done experiments on anything more than a soloist performance, right? So actually spent some time at Northern Illinois University. They have an anechoic chamber there, and I carried a pan with me and we were able to see how the sound was radiating from around the pan. And I used to say, well, okay, maybe the microphone should be better. To me, it's better on top. Most people like to play it below.
Yeah.
I always tell people, it's sounding good. Well, then good, George. You make sure as the panist, you go and listen to what you just played, right? In your sound check, let them record it and you go and listen. And if you're happy with that, doesn't matter what your microphone is. But the bleed is the problem there, and feedback. I'll just give you one quick anecdote. When we were first doing this, the first band we did this with was Carib Tokyo. Carib Tokyo, the entire side that was done amplified, not a single microphone, right? We were able to cut the bass by 2/3. So the bass dropped to about, actually not 2/3, more like a half. So it's from 36 inches to 18. So it's short like a cello, right?
Yes.
And we put the sensors on. But the first time I did that, I blew away a brand new bass speaker.
Oh,
Just one, boom. Cold flew out and never got back in, right? And then in refining it, we kind of carried in a small room for some reason. I can't remember. They were giving us trouble, and because pan is so big and so only got this space and whatnot. And my friend, we turned up the volume a little bit, and I saw the surface of that bass start to move on its own. Slow, faster, till afterwards you could hear it. So a couple of people around, they thought it was a spirit in the room. Feedback, just feedback. So it's just so acoustically responsive because of its size.
Yeah.
And that is the real problem. You get with guitars too, but it's not as bad because it's the strings that's small in mass and size. This thing is that you could talk into a guitar string and come out, right? And you could talk into the pan much easier. That's the problem.
So, Brian, where's the future?
It's from tomorrow.
No. We know it's from tomorrow. But what is
I think it's one where we have to continue exploration, and that is where I'm sad, because the epicenters of pan research is not in Trinidad anymore, right? Especially when it comes to formal research. It started back in the 70s. A guy called Ron Dennise, by the way, an Australian who realized, wait a minute, this thing is so different. We had it all the time, right, for about 30 years at the time, and we didn't pick up on it. That's a little thing with people looking down on pan. I think a little bit of that. And I had long stories with that one as well. That was Australian, but he ended up working with Clement Bear, right? Amber, right? Not Imbert, he says. Amber. And, you know, working with him.
Remember that he's on there. He's
Amber.
in birch.
But they were able to do the first, I think that was the first formal research paper on pan. Then others followed. I think Otto Bolden's uncle did some work on the layout of the notes, showing how it's easier to play modern music on it and so on. His Pat Bishop actually gave me a copy of that paper. And then Derek Gay civil engineer, but deadly bassist, flute, sculpting, all the arts, right? He retired about 2 years ago. He did a lot more work on the vibrations, developing computer programs to simulate the instrument. And then, you know, it went dead for a while. And, you know, when I started to work with Crypto, I realized you had all these problems with where do I put this pickup, because sometimes you put it in the wrong place and it sounds like if you're trying to operate on a cat alive, you know, it's screaming at song come from, you know.
Yeah.
But we've had some techniques for doing it. And as I said, now there are commercial sensors you can put on the side of the instrument. You have to pick it just right, and it will kind of work fairly well. But the work that's really done was at NIU at the time, Northern Illinois University, where, by the way, Liam Teague is, right? Mm-hmm. One of the best music schools in the States. You could just sit on the corridor and listen to practice. It come like if in a full-fledged concert. They used to have jazz greats coming in all the time. So that's where Liam Teague is. But in the physics lab, there was a guy called Tom Rossing. May he rest in peace. He died last year. And he actually followed the first paper we had here with his own studies at the lab at NIU. So when I was doing a sabbatical, I went across there. That's around 2001. It was impressive what I saw there. The whole lab was full of musical instruments. And he was crazy about it. And he wrote about it. He had books on it, right? And all that stuff. I was trying to figure out again how they worked. Didn't have the answer just right. Anthony Achong, here in Trinidad, before he died, was recognized as the best, the foremost researcher on Steelpan globally. Don't mind he was vexed with me, right? He for G-Pan and all that stuff. They did get a whole chapter to say why G-Pan can't work, right? I said to them, well, have you tried it? I said, no. But he, I would tell anybody any day, he was way in front of a lot of people. And just to end that story, a lot of the stuff he used, actually, what do you believe? It came from some reference material, not on so much on metal vibration, but metal impact of objects on metal. One guy that used as a researcher out at the University of Texas, El Paso, a fellow called Lawrence Moore. Lawrence was a NASA engineer. His job was to look at the impact of, you know, space have a lot of junk, right? Even paint flecks flying at high speed could kill you out there, right? It's high speed. And they had to protect the shuttle aircraft. So his thing was to look at the fuselage of it, determine how these impacts work. But guess what? When you play upon what you're doing, you're taking a stick and you're impacting on a piece of metal in front of you. So first time he saw pan, he just went crazy. Next thing you know, he formed a whole pan site down at University of Texas El Paso. Started did a couple CDs. I have one of them here, I think, and then wrote some serious papers that looked at the metallurgy and how, you know, the range of the composition that is required to do good, to make a decent instrument and all that. So my point, though, coming back to it, is that all our work was going on and it was really moving beyond us. But at this point in time, there is not much going on trying to do when it comes to the surface. Still work to be done on the pan. If I have a product and it's on the market and I don't have a research team behind me, my product is dead in less than 10 years.
So you're in fact saying that we are at risk because we don't have the research here.
One of the reasons is that, right? A major one, I think, especially when it comes to pan technology. Now, you could buy big steel or borrow, right? So
Yeah.
I always wondered if when I had the steel pan project running, if I should not have brought in some foreign engineers, but I was so Trinidad, you know, and whatnot. I think we paid the price for that. Honestly, I'm saying it right here. Yeah. So you could always outsource it, but you have to be in control of it, and we're not fully in control of it right now. That said, there are some tuners who are doing some tremendous work. Jimmy Phillip just got a national award. Jimmy Phillip, if you go down, well, next time you go San Fernando, right, you're passing once, right? You'll see just by Price Plaza right there. There's a little house there, right there on the edge of the highway. People pass by and they don't see it. That's Jimmy Phillips' tuning yard. You walk in there, you'll be surprised these things he does. He makes his own tools, right, to do different things and so on. He's innovated on different pans. He's a recognized inventor in the pan world. Sorry, I have this Sarah Dustin.
It doesn't matter. But Brian, I'm still not sure what you're telling me. If it's just gone?
No, it's not gone.
So if let's say you had the opportunity with the funding and were able to create a project that might make a difference, what would you do?
Right. So the first thing is I will need to show up that steel pan technology component. Right now, the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association and the Tuners Deal, they're trying to work on some sort of standards. Well, to improve the standards from the TTBS, they are standards. So I will try to align it so that material that's required, technology that's required, that all the tuners right now as an artisan group, they have access, more ready access to it. We have to respect them because, I mean, you could clamp something down and kill innovation, right? At the same time, we really have to have a concerted effort to further develop whatever, looking for the best word to say, but bigger entity that could exist to manufacture these instruments in mass. Now, MITCO, I think, has started by having looked at them well enough to say that they get in there. It may well be, and perhaps then party for it will be a proper study to look at it. It may well be that we decide that we're going after niche markets. After all, we still have the name as the place where the pan was innovated. We have respect, you know. With all that I'm saying here, we have respect, right? A Finnish guy nearly tear into me because I drill a hole in the pan to put a little jack on it. You know, why this one? So you put a hole in the instrument.
Yep.
Are you with me? Serious respect, you know. You know, serious respect. You know, there's a place in New York, a store. When they finish play, they put on their gloves and they pack their pans away nicely. You drive by a pan yard there plenty of times, you see the vines growing through the rack. That's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have respect. The instrument has respect. We leverage that. And so, how do you do a national business plan to push that pan industry forward? What is the target? Like for the FI, I could tell you, we targeted a certain percentage of the international trade in music instruments. We were going after the piano. Right? So what do we do? How best to phrase that? Do we stay niche? And in niche now, you start breaking down your market, and for the higher value product, you really charge for it. Right? See it? And you do a range of it, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking that's the way it should go. The tuners are limited, you know, they learned in the past because they tended to hold on to their technology a lot. So the average story that tuner that they catch there, you know what, to learn what they did, and you know,
I'll give it.
Yeah, I'll take you on for a bit, but you know, after about a year, just go away, right? That kind of thing. You know, that has happened so many times.
Yeah.
But there's one who I remember, sorry to drag this on, told me they had nightmares about hammer chasing them. I say, yeah, because you're working too hard. Why don't you make an A-grade pan, make 10 for the year, sell it at a premium, and then train people to do a B and C grade, right? Because you know somebody come 5 years old, take up and that pan mashing up next month, right? So why spend time on it? Do it well enough, and do your grades up and tell people I'm selling you an A-grade pan or a B-grade pan. See, that A-grade pan, that is my Stradivarius, right? So why don't you do that, right? But never took the height, right? So there's some business organization to be done. So the funding had to be in that way, but we have to set that target. We're going after this. There'll be so many sales, this amount and so on coming to the country. First beneficiaries, of course, will be the tuners, right? And of course, Trinidad and Tobago will benefit because government will tax them, right? So maybe not, because maybe a concession, I don't know. But that is the first thing I will do. The second thing I will look at is what we call the derivatives, and the FI is a derivative. So any invention you think of, there's always something that suggests a new form in some way, all right? And so the FI is one. And there's this instrument that you see people playing in the subways and so on in New York, right? It looked like two Chinese walk upside down. They call it the hung, right? You ever seen it?
No.
It looked like a flying saucer. Well, that was inspired by Pan, right? Got 8 notes on it, I think. Yes, 8 notes, I think. It made to different kinds of scales. Appeals to the gypsies and the hippies and whatnot, people with that kind of music. More for rhythm than anything, as you play with your hands. It's called the hung. Some people call it now the hand drum. That has taken off so much so the original inventor is run over the world trying to find who copying his design. Too late.
Yeah.
I visited a musical conference convention last year, and I saw 3 manufacturers out of Germany making that instruments, and another making an electronic form of it, right? So that came after Pan. It's more like the early ping pong, but it's like a saucer, right? Well designed and everything. But just to tell you again, what people respect the instrument, the guy who made it, Felix Rona from Switzerland, he was helped by Saab, the car manufacturer. He was helped by them, right? He actually wrote a poem as to how to tune the pan. Ain't he mad? Right? Poem. Up the river, down the tree, rung up the trunk. So I can't remember how it goes. It's called pan art, right? And he made several pans, types of pans. Oh, it's Swiss name, right? So we call this one the hung, spelled H-A-N-G, now called the hand drum, right? Yeah. You had one called the ping, another called the peng, another one called the pang. But they were all pans. They were interesting construction, stainless steel skirts. We have one in Ilam. It was heated. Your pan has to be heated. Well, heated it in a nitrogen charged oven. Came out black. So they used to be called the black pan. You didn't have to chrome. You didn't have to chrome. That's it. It's set for life. Nitrogen in there, it is not going to rust. When you tune it, it is staying in tune for a long time. It hardens it, hard enough. His tuning was different. So instead of the curved parts of the notes, it curved, and then he put a dome in the middle. And he claimed that dome is what helps it to retain tune. So it looks like a double hump and all that. So it was completely new in terms of construction. He made a whole range of these. I think about 6 or 7 ranges. And then he just dumped them because the hung was so successful. $750 US, Canadian for one many years ago. I don't know what it sells for now. Right? And I swear he's a millionaire from it.
Yeah.
That's the success I want to see.
Brian, talking to you is not giving me inspiration that the steel band will at some point be the thing that we own and the thing that the world respects us for. All you're telling me so far is we're losing it,
No, maybe I'm losing my touch, right? but no. We're alive, we breathe in. Always hope, right? And all these guys have the respect for us. At minimum, hey, just make them citizens. All of a sudden, we have success, right? At minimum. But no. All we need is that effort, and watch the world. The world is going to say, all right, okay, you're living up to it. I could tell you, there are a couple of them, they look down on us with scorn. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I could tell you that. I've seen it.
Brian, because I am one of the consumers of the pan, I love the pan. One of the things that triggers me is that if I decided one Friday night, I want to go and hear a pan, I want to go and hear, I don't know where I can go. So we don't have any theater that has a structured approach to playing the instrument, so that, let's say you have a visitor who comes to Trinidad, you don't know where you can carry them.
Well,
So
it's
we
not,
need to structure the thing in such a way
oh,
so
yeah.
that people like me who love it, I would spend a lot of time just listening and being entertained by Pan, but I don't get that.
And remember, there's a whole business thing behind this too, right? Who paying for that when they put it up? I have to be very crass here. You see it? So we are people. It's us too. So Calypso Tents kind of start back this year. I remember going to Calypso Tents, and I used to be living vexed when people start to walk out while the last song is being sung. Walk right in front of the Calypsonian, right? I see Crazy actually watch them and shake his head when he was singing once. So that is disrespect. That's disrespect. We only like the Pan at Panorama. And Panorama is airpan. I'm sorry. Panorama is war.
No, it's
Panorama is
it's
war.
not. And Brian, you've just triggered something in my mind
Yeah.
where I had made a recommendation that
Yeah.
the central bank should
Yeah.
have a lunchtime concert
Yeah.
every Monday. And that would coincide with when those cruise ships came in. And
Yeah.
the idea nobody took it on.
Well, you see, all that should really be part, not of this year, but really part of a big plan, right? And if that fits in the plan and does something for partners who are looking for something, then great, right? But it needs to be that we really and truly show national respect to the instrument. And you don't just show respect and walk away. You show respect by giving it its due place, by making a contribution to make sure that people could keep on playing. We've done a lot in terms of training the young people. I mean, that school program, even it's when it had its highs and lows. But I'm telling you, I've seen some really awesome people outside there, you know. So we had that. They're going abroad, by the way.
Yeah.
And those people appreciate the
They
musician.
either go abroad or they back away from the Steelpan and they go to study or they do whatever else. They start their
Yeah, I've
families,
seen that too.
and then some of them come back. So there's quite a large number of people who can play the instrument and have a commitment to the instrument. What I think is missing is a national plan as to what we're going to do with this instrument. Where do we see it in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years? I see the absence of that national plan, trying to look at the commercialization of it. That just bothers me that
So
nobody's doing that.
we could do that while we make it the national instrument officially.
Okay.
That says everything, right?
Yeah.
I can't understand what's wrong. Yeah. But just doing that and doing nothing, forget it.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said, concerted plan. No, pan is nothing by itself. It's the panist that makes it. So the two have to come out together. Technology is one, and then we have to get that space, as I said before, organized, right? The business of music, and how do you improve your craft and whatnot. So even down to how you put music together and all that, even down to that, because what is you're trying to win an audience.
Yeah.
You have to be inside, you see it? So get us into that. It could start in the schools, it could start in the panyards. Panyards are pulling themselves together now, if you look at it. They're doing quite well in doing that, actually seeing themselves as business, registering as businesses and so on to keep themselves going, to the cash flow going. That has to happen. But at the same time now, the whole engagement to build that real national ownership that will then lead to the pan going where it has to go. And by pan, I mean the pan community, not just the instrument. It can't play by itself, right? We have a problem with pan calypsos, eh? So, because the pan this and the pan that, and the pan was nothing without a human being behind it. Nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing. It is the human being behind it, and it is for the human beings, for the person, not the instrument. If it's just a source of pride for you, go and some Moby or something like that, no, that ain't doing anything, right? And it's not affecting our national well-being, our GDP, and everything else that comes with it. I still can't tell you how much pan can contribute to our GDP. I would bet my bottom dollar that it is a whole lot more, right, than anybody could count right now. We just have not moved to properly commercialize it and to utilize that gift that we have been given. It's a gift.
it is a gift. And the point you're making is that, well, the point I want to make is that without a structured approach, you
Yes,
will
yeah,
not be able to do the measurement to say
yeah,
what is the contribution. And that structured approach is what is missing. And I think that can only happen in the initial stages by government funding. I don't
yeah,
see it happening otherwise.
yeah, yeah,
That, that has to be like a long-term approach in which the government funding goes up to here, and this is where we expect,
exactly. It's
that,
like any other business, right? You lay
yes.
out the plan over so many years. That's your intention. That's your target. Here's the funding to get it going, and these are the milestones you have to cross. We have to pull it all together. Now we be fighting ourselves. This thing is 60 years plus old, so I faced it. You're going to get all kind of reactions. Well, guess what? Brace for it, and then embrace it and
There's
move on.
another view I have, and that is
Yeah,
that those steel bands that have been sponsored,
yeah,
particularly, and I won't call their names, those that have been sponsored for many, many years now, except one that I am aware of, the majority of them are still looking out for the sponsorship. There isn't a plan and a strategy to say, okay, we will give ourselves 5 years of the sponsorship and where we can break even, and then we begin to be self-sufficient. And that bothers me. My husband came back to Trinidad 50 years ago, and he says that when he arrives, Steelpan was being sponsored, and they were not self-sufficient. 50 years later, in his opinion, they're still being sponsored and not self-sufficient. Now, that is a serious statement, and it is an opportunity for us as a country transform
yeah.
what we span into a business, a sustainable business. And if we don't do things like that, we waste some time.
Yeah, you're quite right. I could tell you why all that happened because I saw it myself. I work with a panel that was given a whole set of things, given a space, building, even a business in the building and whatnot, wouldn't say who and so on, and the next thing, the whole thing fell down. And when you check it, it was just the people dynamics. They weren't, in my view, mature enough to understand what it was being done for them. It's like someone winning a lotto, coming from poverty and winning a lotto, the poor next day, right? Because, because they're not accustomed handling, that sort of dynamic. So it's a people thing. So which means that if that is being done again, you have to bring people along. You can't leave them where you are. Still comes back to development of the citizen. It comes right back to that. And you get a citizen to a certain state, you'll find now that your work in moving forward these initiatives is a lot easier, right? They'll see the big picture for the most part. They always have battles, right? But it'll be a lot easier. If you ignore it, remember where PAN came from. If you ignore that, it'll be basically doomed to failure. And that, I wouldn't say that is what happened, but that's the reason why you saw things the way they were. I remember there was a time when professionals would try to get into Pantry and Bureau, and man, the bread the devil need. When you come from a big man, so kind of stuff, you get all of that, you feel you going, that kind of stuff. Because there's meeting, that kind of thing. And so you can't see beyond that this is really an attempt to try and help, move the things forward and so on. But we have to still get into that people development mode. The field I'm in, it says this. My qualification here, it says this. You want to move something from point A to point B, find out what that something is first. How does it respond when you apply a force here or force there and force there, right? And if you know that well enough, you can then direct it exactly where you want it to go. That sounds like something from a soap opera, right? Mother Nature cheap like nothing, it's the same story. Find out what it is that characterizes the space that you're working with, what influences it, what are its characteristics, how it's going to respond, and then you can get it to go from point A to point B. Of course, as human beings, you have to have some sort of agreement and whatnot, which is part of the process too of understanding. That's it. All right. It sounds simple, right? But I know it's hard. I spent 30 years trying to do that.
Mm.
And I hope you will continue to try to do it so that we can transform our country.
Yeah.
Because our country at this stage,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
have, I just want to I want to transition away from steel band because there's so
Yeah.
many areas that I want to have
But
a
I still
conversation
pick
with.
up a little bit. I just have something to take care of here, and I
Okay,
know it's
then.
a program.
Okay.
All right. So I hope you forgive me for this. All right.
If you just pop off, turn off your camera and
I will
go.
do that. I do have on a long pants, so it's not a problem. Just give me a second.
Oh,
What a wonderful conversation, David, that we've been having.
yeah,
With
because when I saw Brian Copeland, I said, "Wow, this the initial stage of this hard talk segment. You'll have to have Brian to talk total pan because there are lots of stuff that I would like to ask. There's
Mhm.
lots of questions I have been asking all the time because I have switched since I used to be the normal party DJ, and then I got into the media, and I observed the what should I say, the state in which Calypsonians lived and the state in which Panists lived. And I thought, wow, when I compare to the American artists or the European artists, they turn millionaires with one hit, or they might be playing an instrument, and you hear of all these different uh, instrumentalists in whatever discipline they choose, in whatever instrument that they have chosen to make a career of, and they end up in the big league. So I took it up on my own, and that was in 2000. I was at another media house, and I used to be going to this place right opposite the media house, and the guy there was bent on you know exposing artists that people didn't know. But I see Brian is back. Let us keep the thing going with Brian.
Apologies for that. I just had a
That's
mistake.
okay. That's okay.
That's
That's okay.
fine.
I was
That's
telling
perfect.
Denise that we should have you here to have a conversation on pan. Full stop.
Okay.
Because there are lots and lots of questions that are unanswered. And it bothers me because from little boy, I've been knocking around them panyards. You know what used to happen when they go by a panyard a long time and the family find out. When they go back home, prepare for it. But I have seen it. I've seen the development from burning it right in the back of the panyard and the tuna and everybody who's sinking it. And it used to always have me interested in what the hell them fellas doing with this drum. Because I'm from Deep South, right? I'm
Yeah.
from Labray, and around me there were steel bands, and they used to manufacture their own steel bands. But the development always seemed to bother me. I made a lot of noise. I've been an advocate for it as to why pan isn't where it should be to contribute to that same GDP we're talking about. I mean, I always said that we music and we culture, how I describe it.
Mhm.
No, we music and we culture. The music is just the musical aspect of the culture, but it tied together. And
Of course.
Trinidad and Tobago, I've had interviews with a lot of people, the Bootman's mother, and the stories I heard always sent me into the clouds. Like I said, well, why aren't we generating the kind of income from these art forms? Because if we were concentrating, if the authorities and the government of the day from way back were concentrating and seeing the value that these things can bring, we weren't even thinking about oil. Oil has no competition. There's no competition because I used to be saying that the oil will run out, but
Mhm.
this is we born with it. As the youths from birth. I have a 4-year-old grandson. He plays the pan as though he was here 10,000 years ago. So I look at all of that and know, well, that income generating factor
Mhm.
of the music and the arts of Trinidad and Tobago could have generated more. We wouldn't be in an oil mess right now, partner,
Yeah.
because
And
that
you
would
know,
have
and you
generated so much more money than the oil itself. I'm not afraid to say that.
And that's a very good statement for you to make. But I want us to just move away from Pan a little.
Yes, yes. No, I am just saying that maybe we should bring back Mr. Copeland one day
Okay.
to
I'm
talk
sure
back.
Mr. Copeland will say yes the next time we reach out to him.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Copeland, here's my interest now. The future of Trinidad and Tobago. What is your assessment of our economy as we speak? How do you assess it?
Right. So I spent, and this is tied up to the work I did in Pan, right? I spent the last 2 years looking at the economy, and looking at what drives it and so on. And like David said, we all knew for the years that the oil, well, it wouldn't necessarily run out. It just comes so expensive, it doesn't make sense to take it out of the ground, right? Which is kind of close to where we are right now. The price out there has to be real high to justify, pulling it out from the ground. Same for gas. They are all wasting assets. So there's the instant issue of what has been done with the monies that came into the country over all the years. And sorry, that's just not going away. I remember there's a friend of mine, he's a Catholic priest, one that came from India. I don't know if you know, but there are 6 Catholic priests that are from India, right? Yes, it's an interesting story. I told him he must tell it because his father, grandfather, great-grandfather were Catholics. There's a whole Catholic region in India. It was set up by St. Thomas, right? But anyway, he came to me and he said, I can't understand all that money that passed through here. How come I'm not seeing much more development? My response was, neither could I. And I think I don't want to blame governments. They're to blame, but I could blame more the people. Because just like the lotto, it came and it went. Sorry, I'm full of anecdotes, so I hope you don't mind.
That's fine. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, I'm presentation college schoolboy. Right. It was before O levels. Yes, it was. So the school at the bottom of the school, one side is Carib Street, the other one is Coffee Street, and I'm there, standing up. I just didn't feel like going anywhere, so it wasn't like me. It was just me alone, and I'm watching these cars go by. And in those days, the taxis were Austin, Cambridge. You're too young to know those cars, right? So and all the taxis were Austin, Cambridge, and so on. And then the oil boom came overnight. Australian imported Kingswood and big cars being used by taxis. People running a truck inside there, Al Green playing on it with tweeters blaring out overnight. Fella washing their car with whiskey, case of whiskey, and whatnot and so on. People started going to the States and sending back barrel for their children, causing a whole social upheaval. All that happened. And I think looking back is always easy. Looking back, we need to sit down and organize the space a little bit better in terms of how we use the windfall and how we shape the country going forward, as difficult as it was, right? And I think that was missing. We did the best we could, I believe, because we really and truly were, back there when the money wasn't coming in. We had the oil economy, but you just felt that there's more that could have been done, and the money came, and it was just too much. We created the heritage funds and all that stuff, but it still was not enough. People got spoiled with the money. That's my view. All right, buy cheap, right? So that was my view. So I think it could have been organized a bit better, and a structure developed to say this is how our country is going to grow, right? And then education would fit in, industry would fit in. We had great plans. Point Lisas is a worldwide wonder. I don't know if people realize that. All tribute to Dr. Ken Julian. They cuss him upside down, all kind of things. But him and his team, they put together a plan, and they realized how they could capitalize and commercialize the gas that they were burning for 30 years or more in the ground. They started to capitalize on that. People came rushing to see how it is you're doing it. It was a wonder, but it wasn't sustained, right? So let me double down to where I'm focused on these days. If you want your country to survive, and by extension, your people to survive, what do? Yes, you have to have a staple, you have to have a mainstay, But I also believe that you have to depend more on your people individually to first of all take care of themselves and their family, and also contribute to the national coffers, and coordination, of course, would help you grow and develop, by creating the infrastructure and all that stuff. That's theoretically supposed to go. I think the oil that made us so dependent on it that a lot of the entrepreneurship that should have taken place at the individual level, it went away. Especially, I have to say, for Afro Trinidadians, it just went away, right? Working in the public service, get your money. Work in the oil, get your money, right? But the whole development of that in entrepreneurial understanding, it went. We're in a state now where it needs to come back, and come back quickly. We're in a state now where you want our people en masse to be entrepreneurs, but earning foreign dollars. Think of it. If you have a family business and you earning family income, the state don't have to worry about you. You take care of yourself, and you have to pay in the state, and in the meanwhile. What can you do to get business outside? The big companies are doing it. One or two of them, they tell you quietly, I don't worry about no exchange, because my money outside. Right? But it has to be done at the individual and small units. And I've proposed the idea of building a strong SME sector. It's been not my only call, as others have done in the past. But I look for examples. And one of the greatest examples I've seen is in Germany. And I recently found out Costa Rica has a similar structure. So they have this group called, collectively called the Mittelstand, right? Mittelstand. What that group is a whole set of small and medium enterprises that actually contribute to about 30% of the GDP. They have the big companies and the medium companies too, and the middle-sized companies as well. 30%. And in doing so, they hire 60% of the population. That's a heck of a model. It grew. They didn't design it, It grew, but it works for them. Look where Germany is. Costa Rica, I found, has a similar structure. Costa Rica, who doesn't have an army?
Yes.
They have a similar structure.
Yeah.
So how do you grow this? So what we've been doing is looking at it. We realize that that there's a need to develop a strong, innovative culture. If I'm selling something on the world market, I can sell, I don't know, things that everybody else is selling, and the luck of the draw runs with me. And maybe I'll do a couple of smart things to get it in a particular market, get the prices down, and so on. So struggling at that level, I can get things done. All right. But if you really want to start playing real game, you come up with an innovative product. By its very definition, if a product is innovative, it's new, nobody's seen it before, but it also has to bring benefit. When it brings benefit, it means somebody willing to buy it. That's your competition. That's your competitiveness right there. So for the time that you're protected, and the time, by the way, you don't have to patent anything, people kill me for saying this. Everybody running patent, right? So when the Japan came out, patent became a big word. Lawyers happy, right? You could hit and run. Hit the market so hard. They have to come to you because you came out first with it and you do it best, and the world knows it. Automatic protection in the marketplace. But my point is that we have to develop our people, again, come back to people, to the point where they're willing to, as the Bible says, cast your bread upon the waters. Take that chance, right? And go out there and come up with something that is new. You don't have to be only new. You have to have like a kind of a pyramid, because you come up with something brand new, it takes a while to get going. So you have your structure, there are other things, pull people in, do whatever, and so on. Get some money locally, but your aim is to bring in foreign dollars. That's your aim. When you do it, it reduces the strain on the national economy. And guess what? Look at what happened in Germany. The sheer numbers of people doing that, when you look at the whole and look at GDP, is going to be bolstered. And then each of those players supporting their family, they're running businesses. And get this, if I'm running business A, you're running business B, David is running business C, and business A gets a hit internationally, the country still has business B and C running. So you're robust. You see it? And I would have learned doing business A how to set up and run the business on an international scene with a product that people have never seen. Now, so we have to get to this space where we factor innovation into the mix more than it is at present. If you look at the global indicators, WIPO puts out a document every year, the global index, the global index on innovation, I think they call it GII. Trinidad is 102 or 132 countries. Down the bottom. You know what Jamaica is? I think they're number 78.
78.
78.
78. Yeah.
They also ranked as the only country, I think, in the Latin America, one of two countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, who are punching above their weight, meaning that given their GDP, they're doing a lot better in innovation, right, than anyone would expect, right? You know, in the middle of all that fighting with the AG coming in, I nearly give up my citizenship and going to Jamaica, right?
Well, I'm glad that you did not.
Oh gosh, I couldn't be able to come back home.
And I hope that doesn't cross your mind again. So you say
I wouldn't mind taking it dual. It's a lovely country. I like
it is.
Right?
It is, but
Yeah.
Brian, our country needs people like you now because we're in a difficult space.
Yeah. Thing is that we've been trying and trying. I mean, if I come back to DeFi, the one reason there's two reasons I stuck with it. One is that I promised my mother passed me and all that craziness, right? I swear to he's not to agree. But also because we saw it as the means to catapult, to catalyze this whole innovation activity. We need to bring a product to market and get to success as quickly as possible. We need to do that. We have to walk through the whole innovation trials and tribulations, and I'm telling you, it is a lot. Technology is one thing, but you see, working through this country is very difficult to do this. It's very, very difficult. The system's just not set up properly for it. Ease of doing business and all that ties inside here. But do it and keep hammering that wall until they make the breakthrough. And I told them, you've got to move till we sell a good bit, start showing the success, and then you will see people's heads turning. It's not just government, it's John public as well, right? We were chastised when we started on this road. First of all, university used to say, colleagues, like, when I was work on the panel, ask for help to understanding vibration. I'm an electrical engineer, and somebody said, I can't write papers on that. That's why I said, I can't write a journal publication on Steelpan. People writing papers are like crazy now, right? That's what I got, because the appreciation was not there. When we spoke about innovation, entrepreneurship, and so on, about oil and gas. And for how long, friend? Right? So we needed to have been developing that thinking. It's not the only solution. I have to make it very clear. It is part of a broader strategy. It's entrepreneurship first, and then there's innovation-driven entrepreneurship. So it's not the be-all and end-all of it, talking about it. In other words, using every single capability, every single tool that you have to bring wealth into the country. Everything that you could do. Kitchen sink and all. Right? Kitchen sink, every single thing. And this is one that has not been looked at over all the years. A lot of my friends at UE, when I mentioned it, I think maybe I was too strong on it. They thought that they had to stop the research. And I had to tell them, no, innovation goes nowhere without the research. How else you come up with something new? Right? So you do something and, hey, you say, wow, I didn't know this could be done. Can we fashion this into a product? Now, in the developed nations, the systems are in place. In fact, it's so well in place, they don't even know it exists. Up to about 10 years ago, when I spoke to people in the US and so on about this, they couldn't understand it. And then they had to realize that they were a cog in a very big wheel, but the wheel's spinning good. So you have your R&D, in the universities, and your specialist institutions doing R&D, and they know what they are about, by the way. There's some who do it. I'll tell you why in a minute, right? And then you have people who would look at that R&D and say, there's an opportunity here. And they'll get the funders to put into it, and they develop that process into something that's closer to a product or a process, whatever their discovery is. And then they'll move it down. When it shows potential, they say, okay, how do we produce this? Production is another story altogether. Lab, production, 2 stories, right? Because you're doing for a mass, you have to determine how many people you'll be going for. So what size of production, what tools we're using. And actually, if you have come up with intellectual property for that entity or that item that you are planning to market, by the time you're in production, you have about 4 more patents waiting there, because you'll be inventing new machinery, new systems to bring it to the market, right? Even at the market, there's innovation, how you're going to sell it, right? If you come up with a new way to sell it nobody's ever seen, guess what? That's an innovation, and it's bringing you benefit. And by extension, because the thing is being sold, that's bringing benefit as well. But here's the thing. We basically get all of that from outside. We are in the last rung. So we do the research and so on at the universities, and me and plenty of people for all this, because I say, well, you're doing this and you're writing a paper. Sorry, I'm sticking plenty of pins here, right? You're writing a paper and you're putting it in a journal, you're doing your research and all that kind of stuff. You know who's benefiting? You alone. Why? In general, this is especially like 10 years and so before. I still want to drive inside you after this interview, right? but but it's benefiting you, because you put it in an international journal and you get recognition for it and so on. University may get some recognition, it may add to its rankings and all that. And who pay for all that benefit is the people of Trinidad and Tobago, right? And so it goes there, and the international community could access it. I did control systems. Our control system, as I was telling you before, is a very powerful discipline. We touch on technology. We make motors spin. If you do it right, we get TNTech to work properly, right? The spin generators at the right speed and all that stuff and so on. We fly planes. We steer them. We steer boats. We put rockets in space from here and reach on Mars, right? And the cross fingers, everything, they will land on the spot they put. That's what we do. Guess what? We control heart pacemakers, right? We look at biological systems. My supervisor looked at cancer. Cancer. Why? Because nature also is a control engineer, right? If you look at how cells work and so on. We look at economic systems. Anything that responds to stimulus, that's what we control, all right? So in doing this, I went real, of course, there, right? In doing this really and truly, all right, we have to develop that space. The technology that I have, for example, could tell you something about the economy, all right, that I'm using. In fact, I'm working on a project right now that looks at how do we model the economy in a really proper way. I don't like the way the economists do it. But it essentially requires that we get to that place where we can create these companies, and they're not going to come from me, they're going to come from John Public. We have to make it easy for them to launch those companies and get them into the space. And then every way we can facilitate them, we get them outside there and making money for themselves and for us. I went off course, so kind of halfway with my train.
All what you're saying there, it resembles that word I've been hearing bandied about in all the high places, diversification.
Yes.
You know, it's just a statement used at a certain time when people will buy into it, but there's nothing effective about it.
Yeah, because we speak it and don't do it. That sounding familiar?
Yes.
Yeah. So no. So this is exactly that. This is diversification, but in a very specific area. It is picking a fruit that has not been picked before, at least not deliberately. Right. I recently gave a talk at a symposium in Tobago, and in preparing for it, I did a list of the amount of inventions that came from the Caribbean. Right, can't remember all of them now, and of them all, only 2 were patented. One was three. One was the Japan and the Phi, 1 each. And way back in the late 1800s, there's this thing called a shoe last. You know what shoe last is? It's a device that connects the sole or the shoe to the top. Before, it was done by hand and I had to sew it and whatnot. And this guy in Suriname invented the shoe last and patented it. It is still being used today. I don't know much money run on that. I don't think much at all. So the point is that we can come up with new ideas that can benefit the world. We're just not good at really and truly commercializing on them. Every student that comes out of UE, I know probably about 40%, 50% will be in a job that they want to work in. You see it?
And that is what we teach our young children.
Yeah. Study to go and work.
Yes, study to go and work, as opposed to study to see what you can do, what contribution you can make. But the other part of that for me is that our education system has not been transformed. Earlier when we started to talk, you mentioned doing Latin. When I went to school, I did Latin as well, and they don't teach Latin today, but the systems and structures in the schools are the same, so that we're not stimulating our young people to come out with any approach to innovation and so on.
Now, that is the thing, because you could innovate at any age. You look in the US, that's one of the things. I mean, we make all kind of, we still laugh at the US education system, remember? But yet they have people at age 12, 13, 14 creating companies and making money. Why is that? It's because they liberate their mind. I mean, they do not, there's some foolishness they do, right? I mean, they still do foolishness, right? But look at the pluses. Look at the pluses. If your system can do that, then it means that you're kind of doing something right. In your schooling system, you're creating it, but not schooling necessarily. Take it back, your whole system together. Yeah. That country loves innovation. It helps having a first president who was an inventor, Franklin, right? Right. Yes. That set the tone right there. It also helps when you have the highest percentage of GDP invested in R&D. So the country understands innovation now more than they did about 10. I think the knowledge had fallen off, is back up again. The GII report shows 3.5% GDP invested in R&D in the US and 0.1% for Trinidad and Tobago.
0.1%.
0.1% on their measure. Don't know if they got all the data. All right, 0.1%.
But even if it's 0.5.
On that scale, it used to be, I knew it to be 0.4 and all that. COVID would have hit it. I don't know, because I still have to look at the information that they got. 3.5% of a huge GDP, 0.1% of a small GDP. You know what you're talking about. And of course, there will be need to control how the money is spent. You give academic money to spend on research, they'll do what they want, right? And they will benefit. You'll get a little paper and get some recognition, but I'm not sure if, unless you push it, you're not going to get the big bang for the dollar, right? So there needs to be a system that uses the existing institutions, accesses the funding, puts sight on what it is we should be focusing on. Difficult to do because we didn't have a crystal ball, but you have to at least do something. And then put that funding in and then hold people accountable for getting results, right? And the aim is to do the research on the top end, do the development on the middle end, see what's there, and make the call, okay, this will work, that wouldn't work, we will invest in that one, put it out on the market. We started to do that proper system in place at UE while I was there for doing that. We call it the Innovation Entrepreneurship Pipeline. Dennise, I feel like you make me cry, It's but we call it the Innovation Entrepreneurship Pipeline. And so what kind of ideas coming forth in the faculty, students, and I told people even down to the person who clean out the rubbish, we need to talk to them. Because ideas come, more than anything easy, she brings it from any place. And we harvest that, and we start looking at it and helping them to develop business plans, looking at the long road, what's going to take. And it would have gone through, the pipeline involved work in the faculty, and we created a unit called the St. Augustine Center for Innovation Entrepreneurship. right? The first person who headed that was John Agard, who retired as well recently. And that unit has had access to international funding for different grants and so on. But for this type of activity, you would not have gotten much from the international funders. They went to what we call contract research, go and find out how many leaves in the Caroni swamp, right? That's the kind of research they were into, all right? And, write a report on it and so on. But this is investment in a potentially marketable idea. This is you're investing in innovation. And so we actually got them to finally put some funding into that. So there's a fund called the ITT Fund, in Innovation, Technology and Technology Transfer Fund. So people can access it. There's a whole committee set up to look at it and determine who are the winners and who the ones that need to go back to the drawing board. I wouldn't call them losers. And then when it's developed enough, we had created an entity called UE Ventures Limited. It's a company outside UE. Now, if you know UE, right, traditional University of London of 1960 something vintage, right? It's old style. It's very stuck in the past, right? Very, very difficult to change. Somebody, Richard Saunders, who was a registered, is described as an oil tanker, full of oil. We had to make a turn. But it's there for a reason, and it has its value. That's where you get your quality from and ranking. But over the world, you have a company that could move much quicker. And so we created it specifically for that. And one specifically for that, we wanted to involve private sector individuals, because most academics know one thing about running business. I can tell you, I don't. Right? Right? So you bring them in. The game there is different. So people be prepared for all kind of things, because you deal with people who in the commercial space. And when projects come in now, they now what we call early stage development. Carry those forward, carry to the next level, assess, can it be expanded, and then expand if need be, or limit your level, as necessary. Those features, those new components exist right now at UE. The thing is that the pump and the pipeline isn't properly primed. We have 4 companies that's been formed, and they were formed when I was principal, and it's still sitting there, not being commercialized. Right? You have cocoa. We have byproducts of asphalt. Right? We actually licensed one product to Lake Asphalt, but we had about 4 or 5 sitting down there. Right? Understand that they're using them now. IFI, of course, is one. There was one that looked at. We were looking at one point. I think that project stopped. We were looking at medication, came out from the biogrowth in the Caroni swamp. Apparently, very potent. Foreigners mining it, right? So we got in and said, no, we could do this. Adjuvants, I think they call them, and so on. So there were 4 companies also that were formed. It's just a matter of capitalizing and letting them go. We need just one winner. And tell me then, if the country doesn't ignite on that, then I think we should go, and as bad as that country is, tell Mother England, we sorry we made a mistake. Right? We give up. Right? As bad as she is, tell her we made a mistake. But that is supposed to ignite the country. All right? And we have to go on that speed. Will it bring immediate results? Of course not. There's no company that starts showing returns inside about 3 years or 4 years or so on. So you work like hell to make sure, especially for the first ones, right? You do what it takes, right, to get it to succeed within whatever time frame you set. You work like nothing to get it to that point, because that success determines the success of others that will come behind.
Yes.
And this we really can't afford a failure. Too small.
Yeah.
Because, and that is a difficult ask when you're talking about companies.
It's convincing. It's convincing the heads, the most difficult in innovation and diversification. Convincing the people who hold the reins of power, that they listen and they absorb these ideas and try to effect them.
I don't think so. I think I saw different levels of traction over the years. But I think overall, as far as the powers exist, choosing my words carefully here, right? both at government and in even university leadership, right? It takes some doing to get people convinced. I only need one. You only
Yeah.
need one, that
Yes.
is sufficiently powerful to move it. And that win is all the more important for them. I remember at UE, I gave a presentation to Patrick Manning. He actually saw it straight off, but then didn't do much. The Japans, like case in point, once they were patented, they just say, okay, I'm done. That is actually, I'm saying it openly. He said, I'm done. He said, but you don't put patent on without a business plan. Here's the business plan. Right? He wanted to move on to other things. So okay, he just wanted the name outside there. All right. Yumi, it took a bit more doing for them to understand. What do you believe? I had to make 3 presentations to the powers that be at the time. Those were way above, for them to see what it is I was talking about. And then I remember the comment of one of them who, not mentioning names, who said, well, wait a minute. This person was from outside, and then they came into me. Hey, but I have a company that does these things. But they weren't directly involved, so they didn't make the connection. So here I'm talking about this thing, and you've had the experience. Is your friends did it, but you involved in it, you probably get benefit from it, So they couldn't see the connection, because as one guy told me when I was asking for help, same person asking for help with the Steelpan, said we only supposed to be doing research and teaching here, And I say, well, yeah, but in these other countries they have people who do this.
Yes.
If there's a gap in this country, the university has to pick up the gap.
Yeah.
You know?
So, Professor Emeritus Brian Copeland, you've given us all kinds of things today.
Yeah.
Give me 2 things that you want to see done, and you're going to be behind.
No, I really want to. So I've learned to focus a lot.
Mhm.
I am moving right now to get this file out into the market.
Mhm.
Everything else will come from that. That is the major thrust right now. I could go board and say, develop the metal stand and all that kind of stuff, No. I want this product out because that's blood, sweat, and tears. I give you all the reasons before. All right. When that happens, all the rest now will start to be connected. The second thing is the education system, which is really for developing people at Trinidad and Tobago. It really has to be revamped. It really has to be revamped. I'll just give you a quick example. I'm gonna use my kerchief now, right? One of the things that's missing in terms of the raison d'etre, take a pronounce it right, for education, is personal development, personal preparation for life. When a storm hits, knocks your house down and so on, you need to know how to survive. If you survive the storm, you need to survive afterwards. Can you do that? You can't. Most people can't. Most people can't even swim, right? So the whole thing, they tied into a whole big talk about physical literacy, mental and spiritual literacy. Development of the individual, the human asset, I call it. That human asset. It needs to be one of the main focal points for education. It's not just the education system from government. It's everything. It's civil society involved, the informal and the non-formal spaces, as they call them. Everybody, scout troop, everybody have that in their mind. They're developing this asset. Think of the kind of citizens you have if you could do that successfully. East Germany tried, and I learned this from the East Germans. Physical literacy for everybody raised up hell of a sports people. Right? So that is what I'd like to see done. They start with national service. It's a good start, but it's still far from where I'd like to see it. But physical, mental, spiritual literacy, right? And mastery of all those components. I'd like to see us put that in the education system in a very much more powerful way.
That's an excellent 3 items that you talked about there. And, one thing, my observation is that we have become very selfish and very self-reflective. So all we're looking at is how does that affect me? And then you don't worry about anybody else. We've reached
we not I.
I mean, I grew up in a country in which good morning was something that was just said all the time. someone would always help you to do something. Today, in the country we have today, none of that happens. People have just forgotten that, humanity is what we ought to be focusing on and making a difference for.
That's how society grew. That's how
Yes.
society grew. Now it's, well, you said it.
Yeah. So thank you very much,
My
Professor
pleasure.
Emeritus Brian Copeland. Thank you for being with us. You spent the last 2 hours with us. We sincerely appreciate this. And I can assure you that we will be calling you again, especially the steel band conversation that
Yes.
we had. Because I can just imagine the kind of responses that I am going to get and that I have been getting. But
Yes.
thank you very much.
Same
And
heart, so it's all right. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, then. My pleasure. My
And
pleasure.
Mr. Copeland, are you accessible? Like, should I call you? Can we have a conversation?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay.
I'm retired, so I could take you all night.
Well said. Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Denise. All right, Denise.
Bye.
Bye. All the best.
Okay, that's it for today's edition of Hard Talk. We had Brian Copeland with us and hosted by Dennise Demmings. Next Monday, Karen will be back with us for another edition of Hard Talk, Power 102 Digital Monday.
The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.